41 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie has been missing from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Investigators are currently locked in a battle against microscopic evidence that refuses to cooperate. We now know that unidentified DNA was recovered from inside the Guthrie residence, stranger DNA that matches neither Nancy nor her inner circle. But there is a complication that could stall this entire investigation. The sample is mixed. As the Pima County Sheriff admits a terrifying possibility regarding the suspect, a new cache of digital evidence has just been unsealed. The FBI has finally bypassed the security layers of Nancy's secondary surveillance system. What they found on the side of the house near the pool changes the timeline of the abduction entirely. But it's the data that is missing that has investigators truly concerned. Day 41. The heat in Tucson is beginning to mirror the intensity of the search for Nancy Guthrie. For weeks, the public has been fixed on a single grain of information: the surveillance footage of a suspect from the front of the property. However, we can now confirm that the Guthrie estate was equipped with a far more extensive network of security than previously disclosed. Secondary cameras were positioned to monitor the side yards and the swimming pool area. For over a month, these devices remained a digital black hole. We now know that federal investigators have successfully extracted data from these units. The procedural status of this case has shifted from a search for leads to a deep dive into forensic recovery. The central question remains: with a suspect captured on the front camera, why did the peripheral system remain silent at the exact moment of the abduction? The recovery of this new imagery was a multi-agency effort involving Google technicians and Pima County investigators. Reports indicate that motion-activated cameras on the side and rear of the house did indeed capture images in the weeks leading up to Nancy's disappearance. These are not full-motion videos, but thumbnail captures, static frames triggered by movement. Court-level documentation reveals that these thumbnails show various individuals traversing the side and backyards prior to the event. Some have been identified as law enforcement officers arriving post-abduction. Others remain unidentified. Were these contractors, pool maintenance workers, or something more predatory? Here is the contradiction that investigators are now forced to reconcile. On the night Nancy Guthrie was taken, the cameras triggered by the suspect's approach at the front of the house worked perfectly. Yet the side and pool cameras, which should have captured any movement around the perimeter, recorded absolutely nothing. Why would a sophisticated security network fail in sections rather than as a whole? Investigative interest has returned to the theory of a signal blocker or an intentional internet disruption. Neighbors have previously reported unexplained connectivity outages at the precise window of the crime. While some dismissed the antenna protruding from the suspect's pocket as a simple walkie-talkie, the selective failure of Nancy's Nest cameras suggests a level of technical sabotage that is difficult to ignore. The Pima County Sheriff, Chris Nanos, has maintained a disciplined silence for the better part of 2 weeks. That silence ended in a recent interview that has sent a tremor through the Tucson community. When asked directly if he believed this suspect was capable of striking again, his response was immediate: absolutely. The sheriff is now operating under the formal theory that this was a targeted abduction, though he admits they lack the evidentiary weight to confirm that with 100% certainty. The implication is clear: the threat did not end when Nancy was taken. If digital evidence is failing, the case rests entirely on biology. Forensic analysts are currently focused on a pair of gloves recovered from a roadside, items believed to be discarded by the suspect. To understand why this hasn't led to an immediate arrest, we must look at the mechanics of the crime lab. Forensic science experts, including those from Arizona State University, have highlighted that skin cells left inside a glove are DNA poor compared to fluids like blood or saliva. The longer a suspect wears a glove, the more friction occurs, depositing more cells. However, environmental exposure on a Tucson roadside degrades these samples rapidly. The process is clinical. Analysts use sterile, long-handled swabs moistened with distilled water to harvest representative skin cells from the interior of the glove. These cells are then subjected to a DNA extraction process, where reagents break down cell membranes to isolate the genetic material. The threshold for a usable profile in the United States is incredibly slim. Analysts require as little as 1 nanogram of DNA to begin copying the specific regions known as short tandem repeats, STRs. These are the genetic addresses that distinguish one human from another. In the Guthrie case, investigators are looking at over 20 of these locations to build a profile, but they have hit a wall. The DNA found inside Nancy's home is a complex mixture. This means the sample contains the genetic signatures of multiple people overlapping in a single collection. Imagine trying to read 3 different books that have been printed on top of one another on the same page. That is the current state of the evidence. The forensic team is now pivoting to a single specific detail captured in the original surveillance footage. As the suspect moved through the property, he was seen holding a flashlight, but he wasn't holding it in his hand. He had the end of the flashlight gripped between his teeth. In the world of forensic pathology, this is what is known as a high-yield DNA event. If that flashlight was left behind or recovered, the presence of saliva on a tool like a flashlight provides a much richer DNA source than skin cells. Saliva is a primary body fluid that forensic scientists prefer because it offers a high-quantity, high-quality sample. If the suspect deposited saliva on an object inside the home, it could provide the strong profile needed to cut through the noise of the mixed DNA sample. When a mixture is discovered, analysts look at peak heights on an electropherogram. If one person contributed 90% of the DNA and another only 10%, the profiles can be separated with mathematical precision. However, if the contributions are equal, a simple mixture of 2 or 3 people, the complexity increases exponentially. There is a procedural reason for the recent wave of search warrants and buccal swabs being collected from individuals of interest. Investigators do not collect DNA from suspects unless they have a profile to compare it against. This suggests that despite the mixture issues, the lab has developed at least a partial or weak profile from the Guthrie crime scene. It may not be strong enough to upload to the National CODIS database, but it is sufficient for a direct one-to-one comparison. If a suspect's buccal swab, a simple painless wipe of the inner cheek, matches even the minor peaks in that house mixture, the investigative circle closes. The investigation has recently expanded to include a high-profile media event that took place shortly before the abduction. Nancy's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, had recently filmed a segment for the Today Show in Tucson, which included a visit to a local Mexican restaurant. Authorities have now confirmed they are canvassing the staff and patrons of that establishment. They are looking for anomalous behavior, individuals who were lingering, taking excessive photographs, or appeared focused on the production rather than the environment. This move signals a formal shift in the investigative theory. Police are no longer just looking for a local burglar. They are looking for a Savannah stalker. If the motive was an obsession with Nancy's high-profile daughter, the suspect's behavior, wearing a balaclava but leaving his mouth exposed, taking 40 minutes inside the home, begins to form a specific psychological profile. The legal stakes are heightening. If this is a case of interstate stalking resulting in a kidnapping, federal charges will take precedence, carrying significantly heavier sentencing guidelines than a standard home invasion. The search for Nancy Guthrie is moving into a phase where the science must outpace the clock. We are waiting on the results of the latest round of expedited testing. In high notoriety cases like this, the lab clears its deck. Every other case is paused. The only evidence on the machines belongs to Nancy Guthrie. If the STR testing continues to produce ambiguous results due to the mixtures, investigators have one remaining weapon: investigative genetic genealogy, IgG. This is the same technology used to capture the Golden State Killer and the suspect in the Moscow, Idaho murders. By uploading the suspect's profile to public databases like GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA, they aren't looking for the suspect himself. They are looking for his third or fourth cousins. They are looking for a name at the top of a family tree that leads down to a single male of the right age, in the right city, with the right eye color. The Pima County Sheriff's Office is keeping specific details of the home's interior tight to the vest. This is a standard tactical choice. It ensures that when they finally find a person who knows what happened inside that house, they can verify it's the suspect and not a publicity seeker. Day 41 is ending. The heat is rising. The next major update is expected following the forensic review of the pool area thumbnails. Will those images reveal a face that the front camera missed? We are waiting.